Alright, hi everyone. My name's Mike. Don't consider myself to be a YouTuber, but I did want to review my 2005 Subaru WRX Wagon. This is mostly for me, but people might be interested in this simply because the car is still completely stock, which I feel like a lot of reviews on YouTube now of this generation of Subaru, they're all super modified or they're testing out mods, and that's what the actual reviews are. But this is just the car itself. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I'm going to get out of this parking lot first. Alright, so 2005 Subaru Impreza WRX Sport Wagon. Stock and completely original, same as when it drove off the lot 15 years ago. This is one of my dream cars. I wanted this car since the first time I ever saw it. I think it was in a Need for Speed game, the STI, back in, I don't know, 04, 05. It was my goal to own one of these, and I also have a thing for wagons, which is why I settled on getting the WRX wagon as opposed to waiting it out to try to find the STI that I would want. So, by today's standards, this is not a fast car. You can make the argument that it's not even that quick. That's fair. For me personally, it's got plenty of get up and go. I'm not chasing huge power numbers, hence the fact that it is still stock. Mostly just wanted something that was fun to drive, reliable, and capable, and I think this car fits that bill pretty well. It's quick enough. The all-wheel drive is spectacular. If there was snow on the ground, I would show you that it's not even fazed by snow. But other than that, it's a car. I enjoy it quite a bit. It handles well. There are definitely some things that are starting to show their age. I'm sure that if you really wanted to, you can go through and fix like ball joints and things like that and get overall a stiffer and tighter ride and make it feel more like it did when it was brand new. I didn't buy this brand new, so I don't know what that feels like. But compared to how I've driven it, it feels great. I think the thing that I like most about this, other than the fact that anybody who's into cars knows what it is once they see it, especially Subaru people, I like the fact that I feel confident in it, and it doesn't feel bloated. I've driven a lot of cars that I have felt were like riding around in a boat. I'm not talking about, making fun of Dodge Challengers or anything like that. I'm talking about cars that other people consider to be fair-sized. Just something about modern cars that makes them feel like it makes you feel like you're floating, I guess. It takes away the specifically the Subarus I've owned, the most capable one just for the sole ground clearance was my Outback. I don't know that it was necessarily my favorite. This is probably my favorite Subaru that I've owned. And part of the reason I'm doing this review is because I'm actually getting ready to say goodbye to it. I know I just complained about new cars, but I'm ready to get something new. So, overall, my personal thoughts on this car. It's exciting to drive. It's fairly invigorating still, even 15 years later. Again, it's not the fastest car in the world, but it's enjoyable. It's something that will turn heads for a specific crowd. I've gotten compliments on this car at car shows just for keeping it stock. I have had people at the gas station offer to buy it from me, which, you know, it's gas station banter. Is it actually a serious offer? But just the fact that people have approached me and asked if it's for sale is interesting, to say the least. And the other thing that I think that makes me just happy about this is the fact that it is a 5-speed manual, turbocharged, all-wheel drive wagon. If you're not Audi, you know, where else do you find one of those? You found them right here. And I think that's a big selling point of this car, and it was for me too. Another thing I dislike about this car is probably the auto setting on the heat and AC. There's a little temperature sensor in the dash. It's these lines that you see here. That actually is what is the driving force for that auto setting on heat or AC. And the problem is that it's not gradual. You never turn it to auto and you get a little heat or a little air conditioning. It is full blast until it senses the temperature you've set it at, and then it shuts off. In the middle of winter, in the middle of summer, when I'm going to be doing that anyways, I don't mind. But on a fall day, even today is chilly, but it's not super cold. I don't need the heat blasting at full bore the entire time I'm driving and then just randomly shut off until the car thinks it's cooled down in here, and then it kicks back on. You know, just a little bit of heat today is perfect, and that's all I really need. In the summer, same thing. When it's 70 degrees out and sunny, I don't need the air conditioning on full blast. I can deal with just a little bit of AC, a little bit of airflow to kind of help cool things and keep me comfortable. I don't need to have this constant just wall of air coming at me. Unless it's 100 degrees out, but I live in New England now. It doesn't get all that hot in the summer. I'll just stop this here for the time being, and then once we get a little farther up the road, I can drop it down a couple gears and really give it the beans. Okay, at the moment we've all been waiting for, being able to gas it and see how it feels. I mean, that pulls fairly hard still. This is the original turbo. Everything is original. This car is the same as it drove off the lot in 2005, except for things like fluids and brakes, obviously. But as far as drivetrain, powertrain goes, everything. It's got 188,163 miles on it as of me driving right now. Obviously, that will continue to climb. So almost 190,000 miles on the stock clutch, stock transmission, stock turbo, stock block, everything. Differentials. And I think what's impressive to me is that I often hear, oh, Subarus are this or they're that. I've never had that experience in the 3 that I've owned. They've all been solid cars. The biggest issues that I've had with all of them is rust. Thankfully, this one's not rusted. It was kept in a garage for most of its life, which is fantastic. But still, I mean, even other cars, once you throw a turbo into the mix, you just don't expect to get close to 200,000 miles with no issues. car doesn't burn oil. There's nothing that leaks. You know, I'm not constantly driving around in fear that I'm going to be running 2 quarts of oil low because I decided to floor it to 5,500 RPMs or something. That's just not a concern with this car, which I think is incredible. And just goes to show how strong the EJ205 really was. I know that now everybody has the FA20, so we've got another 2-liter turbo in the mix from Subaru, which is great. But I just think it's a crime that you can only get the EJ20 in the States for 4 years. You know, this, especially once they fixed the transmission issues on the 2002, 2003, I just feel like this is one of the most solid cars that you can get from this era. And not only is it solid, but it's fun. It's great to drive. It's enjoyable, especially on back roads. I've said that a few times in this video, but my favorite thing to do in this car is to drive into the White Mountains, New Hampshire. Take a day trip up there. Spend the afternoon just cruising around. Go see Mount Washington, of course, and then drive back. That is one of my favorite things to do in this car. And I think it just does it incredibly well. It is engaging to drive. It's not a slouch. You know, in other cars that I've driven, including some of my other cars, when you're on those back roads, it can be a little hairy, it can be a little stressful. But this car is just like, you know, sharp corner coming up, no big deal, we got it. You need to pass somebody going up this hill? Yeah, sure, easy peasy. This car loves being in that mid-rev range. From like 3,000 to 5,000 RPMs, this car really shines. Once you get past that, I feel like it kind of falls off just a little bit, but, you know, it will pull hard to 5,500 RPMs or so. And that alone makes it great. Passing, not going to be an issue. Anything like that is just not a problem with this car. And, you know, that's pretty significant, especially considering the fact that, again, it is all original, 190,000 miles, and 15 years old. It's the 2005 WRX. I guess that wasn't really a review in hindsight. It was more just me ranting about the car, but these are my honest opinions. This is how I feel about this vehicle. It was a fantastic purchase and came at a very good time for me in my life. My needs are starting to change a little bit. Growing up, that's how it goes, but at least I've gotten my thoughts out into the world. I really don't care if this video only ends up with 20 views. This video was honestly more for me than anything else. Just to document how I felt about this car in the moment before I do inevitably sell it and buy something a bit newer. And maybe, depending on how things are going and depending on when I actually get that new vehicle, I will do a review of whatever the new car is going to be and kind of do it in the same style, which again, I don't know if it's a review or if it's me just ranting at the camera, but this is more for me than for anyone else at this point in time. However, if you enjoy it, then thanks for watching. I'm not going to make YouTubing a thing, and I'm not going to start posting more regularly, so feel free to subscribe if you want. Can't promise that you're going to see any more content, but thanks everybody, and maybe next time we'll be doing this from a new vehicle.